Our guest of honor returning is Justin Brock. Justin stands as a leading authority on all things Medicare and health insurance. His agency, Bobby Brock Insurance, is a national powerhouse that assisted over 50,000 Medicare and health insurance beneficiaries and was ranked one of the fastest growing private companies in America on the Inc. 5000's 2023 list. Through hosted events, virtual trainings, and a thriving Facebook community of over 13,000 members, Justin has established a marketing empire dedicated to helping agents scale their businesses. Welcome, Justin.
You know, Josh, I like the way you say insurance.
Do you?
It's a very unique way to say it, and I like it.
Wait, how do I say it? Because I make fun of the way Luke says things, so make fun of me.
You say it again, Josh. Say insurance.
Insurance.
You say you changed it. You changed it.
Now you're so.
What did I say? Insurance? Insurance.
I don't know. It was very smooth. It sounded good. Don't change it.
The guy has a voice for radio. Your dad was in radio his wole career, right?
Still in radio.
Still is?
Yeah, still in radio. 72 years old.
And shame on me. I didn't really know that till we started the podcast like 7 years ago. That I had no idea for the first.
It's a local Christian radio station in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. So
but it was
you wouldn't have
one.
heard of it.
It was number one, right?
It's the number one station in Lancaster County.
Wow.
So not bad. Yeah. So we gotta get your dad on the show too. That would be really awesome.
That would be interesting.
Your dad's tips on how to host a good show. That would be fantastic. Want to talk today about shifts, right? Because there's a huge shift happening in the Medicare space. You could say there's a huge shift happening in real estate too, with the commission lawsuit that came down from the government to NAR. And then Justin, you recently went through a little bit of an acquisition where, you sold part of your business. So there's a shift there in your personal life. So I want to kind of dive in on that. Can you talk to us a little bit about the sale and that process? Because we're not necessarily interested in selling, but everybody has a number. And I'm curious for myself as a business owner, it's like, what made you want to sell? Was it taking money off the table? Was it worth it? How has it been? I know it's only been, not even a year yet, but how's that shift been for you?
Yeah. So, entertaining it wasn't like when we started building, we were selling. I didn't even, early on, it was like 250,000 seemed like a, huge goal, and then your horizon just expands as you gain access to more and more information, and you hear more and more stories. And I remember the first time I heard of a friend of mine in the industry, or somebody that I considered way ahead of me at the time, selling and hearing he got $50 million to sell his agency or his call center, and that was when I started thinking, okay, I would sell, but still I would kind of go in and out of like this emotional high and low of the business, because you get emotionally attached to a business you're building. But at the same time, like what you have to keep that foresight of like, what am I really trying to do? And what I'm trying to do is make sure that the distance between my family's, perceived safety from, negative impacts of the world is, there's a bigger and bigger distance. That's the way I feel like. And so at some point, it's like locking in some of that success when the EBITDA multiples get really, really high makes sense. I sold during a Democrat administration, regardless of whether you're, Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. There's obviously, good arguments on both sides for different things. But when you look at regulatory environments, the regulatory environment for Medicare Advantage and a lot of our verticals, as well as I think real estate, is a little more harsh under that side. Anytime you get people that are selling something or marketing, the FTC, CMS, those governing bodies seem to be a little rough. So like that's kind of the thought that went into it was, let me hedge my bets against the unforeseen. Albeit I'm typically pretty optimistic about the Medicare landscape. I think even a lot of the shifts we'll talk about here in a minute present tremendous opportunity for many people. They also present problems. And I think it's interesting. I think this administration's thrown a lot at the Medicare world, and somehow we're still kicking. And so I think I feel like I'm a little more optimistic maybe than I would have been before, because like what we've just been through.
Well, how big's your agency now?
So we're interesting because we started as an agency. I was building an agency. I was listening to podcasts like Stay Paid podcasts and others out there along the way, out in my car going door to door, started that way, started building some internal W-2 employees, built up service team. And then I started marketing online. I was reading Gary Vaynerchuk books. Who would say, like, document your process without any sort of, kind of like what you guys do here in Stay Paid. You're not making money from the podcast, but you're creating content to draw attention in for other things.
Yes.
So I started putting content out for agents. And so we built this entire other value ladder for the agent community, which kind of turned into an FMO and some other paid services. But now we actually, through our collective agents, serve over 1 million Medicare beneficiaries. But our internal agency is about 52,000 clients with, like, my W-2 career agents. And then we have a couple thousand, like, 1099 agents that serve a collective over 1 million policyholders under us. So.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Now, are you sharing with people? It's okay if you're not. We want the spicy details. Are you sharing with people? Like, was it a multi-million-dollar deal? What was the type of multiple, or did it set you where you don't have to work again?
So I have the way I share it, and I've shared it publicly a couple of times, is we were basically at a $70 million valuation roughly, and we did a 51% deal. So
get out of here, dude. Get out of here. So how do you keep the motivation when you gotten a multi-million-dollar deal? You still own a bunch of the business, right? But how do you keep motivated? Because now you come in the next day, you're not in control necessarily, even though you are, because they can't do anything without you. And you have millions in the bank. How does that feel, and how do you deal with that change?
Well, our platform company that we partner with, it's AmeriLife. They created the structure where you could hang on to equity, and they just buy a majority. So there's a lot of you have to put a lot of confidence in the idea that they're going to leave you alone as long as you're performing. Which is a logical idea. Like, somebody that buys a big asset, if it's growing,
why touch it?
Why touch it, right? And so far, that's been our experience. Is as long as we're growing and we're not doing anything like illegal or crazy, they don't mess with us. I think there are always things that can happen in the marketplace and shifts where they might, but it just doesn't really make sense to have an asset that you paid 10 to 11x.
They're pretty hands off. They're not dropping people in your bit. Like, there's a couple different models, but like in the private equity space, a lot of times they'll come in after they buy you and they replace all management with their managers, right? Because they want control. So they have their guys that they bring in or girls that they bring in. This one is more, they're investing in the entrepreneur. They're betting on you as the racehorse. And so they just want to give you capital and resources to take it to the next level. Do they, are you reporting basically to them quarterly numbers and stuff like that? Or is it pretty intense every week you're having to touch base with them?
They're reporting to us. So they took over that. There's certain things that they did take over that kind of helped us, because we're a sales and marketing organization. It's a lot of agencies in the Medicare world, they think they're a Medicare agency. And the same about the same accord, like, people think I'm a real estate professional. Well, yeah, but what do we really do? We market and we sell, right? And so that's what we really want to be good at. Is I want to get in front of people. I want to retain customers. I want to appeal to them and build rapport through marketing. And then I want to have representatives that can sell them, close them, and retain them. And so the more we can focus on that, the better we can do. So one of the things they came in and helped with finance, because I was still involved in just the accounting aspect of it day to day, the reconciliations, all of that. And so some people say, well, do you really want to trust them to do all the accounting? But like, it's in their best interest. You got to understand, these PE companies, what they do is they buy companies and then they want to package together, grow to a bigger
finance deal. Yeah.
They need you to grow, because if you're growing, they get to make more money off of your growth. So anyway, we have them doing the accounting side of it. They're helping with HR, some of those things. So they're reporting back to us. We only reach out to them mostly. We do an annual budget. So we're going to start doing that for 2025. It's a little interesting, like, when you're new, because like, it's, they don't have a lot of historical data to go off of. So you're they seem to be pretty relaxed the first one you do. And then you do, they come, or you report to them, like, if you want to hire someone, you give raises, all that. But so far they haven't told us no on anything.
Dude, that's an incredible relationship. So what'd you buy yourself Or what'd you do for yourself after you got a multi-million dollar deal like that? I got to know, like, did you buy anything, a car, a watch, something?
I did a couple of things. I did buy a Lamborghini Huracan.
There you go. There you go.
I've already sold it. So I had it for 5 months, and I was like,
this is stupid.
The new wore off, and it was like it would sit there all the time, and it was cool. But I was like, I don't really want to drive it. I'm in Tupelo, Mississippi. It's not exactly a Lamborghini roads around here. But then I did buy a watch. I'd bought several before, but I bought another watch, and then I took a lot of vacations with the family. So I
think I saw that on your Instagram. Yeah, you were going all over the place, which is awesome. So it gives you that freedom. Isn't it funny how like you buy the Lamborghini and you drive it for 5 months and you're like, yeah, this wears off. It's nice. And it's just the testament, like what you read in the books, what you know to be true from the people who tell you money can't really fulfill. It's really about the journey and all that stuff. Yeah. It's the process. That's what it is. Do you find, like, was it harder to come back into work? Is it harder to come back today? Are you more motivated than ever? I'm just curious.
Right now, I feel more motivated than ever because our business is doing so well. And part of the reason I wanted a deal where I could hold on to 49% equity is I was making a big bet that our business was just blowing up. And this year, though we've had some shift in the Medicare landscape with certain even the ACA landscape, where certain holes in the boat where you're leaking some revenue here, we've had this overwhelming brokerage growth, like on the recruiting side, that's offset it. And then our W-2 agents on the Medicare Advantage and Med Sup side have continued to go up. So like we're still growing. Even with some of those weird things that are happening in the marketplace, we were like 34 to 36% net growth year over year for 3 years before this.
God.
This year to date, we're at about 17%. But we actually believe because of the revenue cycle of some of our changes in growth that the first quarter is going to bring us back up to about that 34, 36%. So that's still the goal, is to hit that again. And we believe it will do it. So.
Have you grown that by people, like adding more salespeople? Has it been?
It's been
what's
more
been the secret of growth?
Historically, it was more LOA, so more internal salespeople. But this year, we've done a little bit of that, but there's a little bit more cost there's a significant amount of more cost when you hire the salespeople because you're paying them wages, you're all that. The recruiting side, though, has really blown up for us. So the FMO side, we also have a kind of a software product, a lead aggregation system that, we lease, and we've gotten up to about 690 accounts on there. It's a cheap thing. It's like $97 a month, but it adds up. So we've had some revenue come from that. So,
and that's a high margin business too, if it's software, usually.
Yeah. And once you get them on, there's a lot of add-on on the back end of that where people will pay us for additional build out. So it kind of turns us, I don't like to say like a marketing agency. It's more of like done for you stuff. Like we'll set up Facebook ads for them, things like that. And one of the reasons, we had talked at MedicareCon about getting more involved with you guys is, we make a lot of recommendations to people to do things like use reminder media, so it makes like a lot of the marketing side of what we do is like, here's what we're doing, and then here's how you can replicate it. And a lot of that requires other vendors, like we use, we've worked with you guys, we've worked with, just other market like Thinks.io, like all these other vendors out there that we kind of partner with on variable things. And so that's huge.
That's the correct model. It's what we're trying to do, Stephen and Cody, obviously, on the real estate side with you guys. It's like, it's like a perfect comparison that you guys are the practicing real estate agents and, very successful. Here's exactly what you do. And obviously we're a lot of what you do product wise, but then that gives such credibility. I have found, I don't know if that's how you guys purchase. I've found in purchasing things, like that is no longer do I need the data dump of features and fluff. Like I can do my research on that and look at all your features and all the program plans that you have. And I don't really need the, what is called like the slogan type commercials. What I want is show me the practitioner that is using it and the blueprint of exactly what they're doing. There's no 100% success rate, but I want to see the practitioner. And that's why I think your model, Justin, is just blowing up because you're the practitioner and then you're showing them, hey, this is what we're using. And you're making money off of that side, which is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. There was a period of time where, call them I guess the big predictors of the way marketing was going to change, I would credit like Russell Brunson, Gary Vaynerchuk early on. I was reading their stuff, and Gary was right. He told me to start documenting the stuff online to people that want to replicate some of your success, and you would have, build this great core audience. And that's what we did. We would go on and just kind of talk about what we were doing in our little internal agency, which you get out there and you realize, like, same thing in real estate. Most people are solopreneur. They're an individual agent out, beating the streets, working their ass off. And even those that get to, it's actually almost worse if they get to making too much money in that model, because they have to like really move backwards to scale. So like in insurance, you get a solo agent, if they get to about 250,000 and then recognize what the next step is from that point, they have a much better, potential at starting to build that next layer. A lot of times we'll run into a solo agent that hits, 750, 800, 900,000, $1 million. And then when you start trying to show them what a replicable model on cost per acquisition looks like, they're like, well, that closing ratio is bad, or this is bad. And they're like, I had this the other day at one of our workshops where this guy who's making $1 million a year with like one assistant.
Holy
and
cow.
trying to tell him, like, yes, but to get to 15 million, the economics don't work the way you've done it. You have ran past the mark. And of course, like in some cases, some people would say, well, he's making $1 million a year, he's fine. Well, he's working like a dog, like to do that. And then when he comes and sees a guy like me, 36 years old, sells 51% at tens of millions of dollars, and then has 15 million in revenue coming in, whether I come in the office or not, it's like, did I really do it right, or did I do it the hardest way possible? And so anyway, like, that's what we try to do, is help them identify that earlier, and how to build an appropriate agency, and hopefully take the mistakes that we made and the mistakes that we've seen other people make and learn from those ahead of time. Your parents tell you all the time, learn from my mistakes.
We just don't trust them.
We just don't trust them, and trust is a big issue. Like,
it is.
It's like an intellectual ceiling that a lot of people have, where they're like, oh, these people putting content out online are frauds. And I'm not saying that there are not some out there that are. But if you see the people that are persistent, like, there are some people that are legitimately building good businesses and also enjoy the scaling aspect of teaching other people how to replicate some of that success.
Yeah, 100%. And it's usually in the consistency that you can vet out the frauds. It's just, you look at how long they have been, producing the content and what they've been saying, and, who they, tend to point out. You can see that. I'm actually curious, because it's kind of on the same topic. So you got part of Brandon Dawson and Greg Cardone's platform, I would say, right? Their whole process. I forget what they call it, 10X 360. Mm-hmm. We went to the 10X 360 event. You remember that, Stephen? We went to that event. Man, I was so close to buying like their model. Yeah, the platform. And I still am to this day. That's why I'm selfishly wanting to pick your brain on what you've seen and growing your business. It's like they have created a platform, for those who are not aware, where Grant obviously has built a multi-$100 million business, multiple businesses. Brandon Dawson sold his business for like 77 times EBITDA, and then now has helped scale a bunch of other businesses. They will bring you in, they train you on their platform. They call it 10X 360, where they have HR down, sales down, operations, and they've laid out the whole platform for, this is how you should run your business. And these are the metrics that you should aim for, like a metric like revenue per employee, as a type of metric, as a guide of every employee. I forget what Brandon says. Maybe Justin, is like, he's way up there, like 300,000 per employee or 400,000 per employee.
Yeah, RPE is like when you go bowling and you put up the bumpers on the lane, right? So it bounces back and forth, right? So it's like a bumper and his is 400,000 to 600,000.
Okay,
so the goal is to be 500,000, but he will push it to 600K. Now that is on the high side. When they show a lot of graphs out there, they really try to get the average businesses, and they do a lot in like the home services business. Like, they do a ton in that market, because I'm still in Brandon's BMLP, the business mastery leadership program, which is pretty solid. I mean, it's basically all the people that have platformed are in that leadership deal, and we like on an ongoing post platform, you pay like $40,000 a year and you get 2 spots in it, but you go to like 3 workshops a year and there's like weekly coaching, but it's a high level group of people. It's cool though. A lot of home services. There's some real estate guys in there, a little couple of insurance. I'm probably one of like 3 insurance guys in it. But revenue per employee, like they try to use a $250K mark for like home services. They do say financial services should be a little higher than home services just based on, the number of employees you need and the caliber of employee that you need in financial services, a lot higher percentage of your employees are income producers versus, hired hands. Right. So, we try to use some of that information. It was a really good help for us because we can actually use that information to teach insurance agents and agency owners, because
so dual use, not only use it for yourself, but then redistribute it in a way. Yeah.
And that would be something with all the things that you guys are doing with so many, businesses, it sounds like what the Acree Brothers Realty team is probably doing some of, and what you guys do, it could be like, you're looking at that, the value of it is in, hey, what can I use for this to help with my business, but how can I use it to help other people with their business too?
I don't know what you guys think of this, Stephen and Cody and stuff, but it's like, my struggle, the reason why I'm thinking about the platform, which, I don't want to spend all show talking about his platform, but it's the pain point I'm trying to solve is focus in a business and getting everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction. Did you find, Justin, that because it was a platform that you were adopting, it gave your team, your leadership team, and, I don't know how your leadership team breaks down, but it got everybody moving to the same direction, or was that not a benefit that you saw?
So one thing we've been very fortunate at, and this is something like Brandon's team, BMLP's heavily about the culture of the company. And it's heavily focused on, creating this culture of excellence and camaraderie that, is mixed together. I don't know if he uses those words, but that's kind of the way I see it. Is it's high performing, high intensity, but we do it because we love it and we want to grow this, and giving that feeling of your employees feeling invested, though they're not vested, but they feel invested in the success of the company because it benefits them. And so what, I was very fortunate that we built, kind of a family feeling business. Like it felt like everybody that worked for me was part of it and they felt very invested in it. So when we do introduce new programs, or bring in outside people, we do have certain people on the team that could be cynical of, ideas, but we're able to work around that through honesty. And honestly, I think a lot of Brandon's leadership training has helped me address those people in a way that makes the most sense. A lot of times they're your high performing people, especially my high performing administrators might be more cynical of like leadership training or sales training or things like that. But you have to understand, I have to get them to buy in as like, look, you don't have to immediately respect this person that I respect as much as you respect me, because I think my team respects me pretty heavily. But just know that I've bought into them, and know that you don't have to respect every single thing about them, right? Like that's not what learning from someone doesn't require that I think I'm going to adopt Luke's entire strategy for life. It just means that obviously there are things I can learn from Luke, right? And so like, let's take the time to learn from these people, and pick these things up that are going to help our business. So I don't know. I feel like adapting, them to those things is really just being like fully honest with them that that's your intention. Right. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's my answer.
No, it's super helpful. I think of like, a lot of people, they hate the message because they hate the messenger. And it's like, you don't throw out a message just because you don't like the messenger. Like the message can still be true. And you see that in politics, you see that in business. I mean, everything in life, you see it.
Oh, you see it with people like Grant and Jordan Belford and these influencers. I have a good friend that also sold his business at the same time as me. He's very young. He's about to be 28 years old, and he sold. He made, I don't know, $20-30 million, right?
Holy cow.
Already. And he told me, I don't have to agree with everything that Jordan Belfort says or Grant Cardone says or so-and-so says to learn from those people. And he told me that years ago. And it's been something that's true. It's like, I don't have to buy into everything to be able to pick up some gold that they say. Like, I don't have to buy into everything Jordan Belfort did because he's got a pretty checkered past. But we all can agree that straight line selling, conceptually, when you use it ethically, is still a good practice. You know, he was fundamentally right. He probably could have used it better, but that's the way everyone is. I can learn a little bit from everyone.
Yeah, so true. Do you find, Stephen, that same truth of the high performers are the ones that are a little bit harder to get to buy into a new way?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because it's like it's because they don't have the same kind of vision as you have. Like they get to a point they do want a lifestyle, change kind of thing. Usually, when they're top producers, they want their time back, but they also want to make the same amount of money. And you have this level you were talking about. Hey, if you want to get to 15 million, though, this is what you have to do. But they don't necessarily want to get to 15 million the same way that you got to 15 million. They just want it. So it's hard to communicate, I think, to those top performing agents because you have to speak in their language, and that's super difficult.
Somebody sent me a video this morning and it said, "Are you hungry or do you just want to eat?"
Yeah.
And, I think it's kind of what you're talking about there. Do I want to get to 15 million or do I want to make $1 million but not have to work?
Right.
And there's a little bit of win in there's a little bit of win in like not realizing the insanity that you're going to have to go through to get to something, so that you just that whole 3 feet from gold concept, like you might be 300 feet from gold, but if you believe you're 3 feet from gold and every day you're just like chiseling away, then you look back one day and you're like, man, I wouldn't do that again, but I'm glad I did it, and there's a lot of value in that, and I do feel bad sometimes that I'll find someone who's gone so hard past a point that to come back and build it appropriately as I see. And I'm still learning. Like there's probably times where I'm going to get to a breaking point, because that's 10x360 is all about, is breaking points in your business. I'm going to get to this breaking point and I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to have to come back down to rebuild to this point. And then you have to decide, do you want that? Do I want that bad enough? And, that's a personal question for everybody, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important that you know who you're surrounding yourself with. Because Luke, and when we were talking the other day, we were just talking about how belief is the most important thing. And when you're in the business long enough, you start to see all the pitfalls and all the obstacles that you're going to deal with. Like when I first jumped into real estate, I was just like, there are no obstacles. I can do this. I just believe, And then you get into it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be super difficult. And it's hard to keep that belief. So you need to be around, the Brandon Dawsons and the Grant Cardones, because they just give you that belief that you can do it. It's so important to surround yourself with those people.
Yeah, that's probably the most impressive thing about Grant is just his level of belief and appetite at the age that he is and all that he's been through. It made me think when you were sharing, what you guys are sharing, it's like, do you guys believe in work-life balance? Like if you want to build anything great, like do you believe in this concept that you can, spend like Tim Bushnell on your team, he's done 51 deals in 12 months, 13 months, whatever that number is, which is insane in real estate, like just crushing it.
Yep.
And I was talking to him the other day on a session and he was just like, well, I really need to have a date night with my wife at least once a quarter. And I need to be home. I need to find a day where I could be home at least one day a week, because he's working basically every day. And it's like, okay, well, that's the question of work-life balance. It's a personal, like the obvious answer was a personal decision for everybody. But my question to both of you guys is really, can you build anything big and great if you're not all in, just obsessive about it 7 days a week? I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I think it's always going to be that way because like the ceilings of achievement, like we were talking about that this morning, is like you get to a point where if you're trying to grow, you're going to get to a point where you don't know what the next step is. So then you have to spend massive amounts of time and failure to get through that ceiling. And so like, if you do want to keep growing, there can't be that balance. If you get to the point where you're like, I am going to stay steady in my growth, right? Where I maybe don't want to achieve the 15 million, but I want to produce, 1 million and then 1.1 million. I think there can be that balance, but not if you're like if you're hungry for the 15 million, I just don't see the balance that you can gain because you're going to get to those ceilings of achievement.
Well, I think that is
agree.
different to so many people. Go ahead, Justin.
No, so I mean, same thing. I agree. I mean, I think there's the Atomic Habits, I think, is the book that talks about you're always leaning into one or the other. You're always leaning into work or leaning into. And when I quote a book, guys, I don't read them. I'm just going to tell you guys. I hit the high notes. I know I have a lot of friends that read books, and I'm like, they're like, "Have you read Atomic Habits?" I'm like, "Tell me the good part of it." And they're like, "Oh, work-life balance," And I'm like, "Great, now I don't have to read it." But like that the concept apparently is that you're always leaning into one or the other, and so I find a lot of seasonality in that for me. Just post that deal this year. I was traveling a lot and I was able to kind of mentally check out for a little while. And I've come back in the last couple of months, I've been heavily engaged. And so, because I think if you're trying to have like day to day or week to week work-life balance, even when you're doing things with your family, you're going to be thinking about work. So it's not like you're truly present.
Powerful, man.
You're just going through the motions, And so, versus like when I was, after the sale, we took a week trip to the Bahamas. We did a VIP Disney Universal Day. We did that again later on. We went to Florida for a week, and then we went to like Water Sound or Watercolor for a week, and then we did 2 weeks in Greece and rented a yacht in the Mediterranean. We're doing like all the like super fancy travel stuff. And during that travel, for the first time, probably in a decade, I felt like truly 90% unplugged, whereas most of the time I'm like 90% plugged in all the time. So I don't know. I think you have to decide. I think everyone has to decide what's important. And of course, kudos to my wife for dealing with that, because, while some people could look at it and be like, well, there's been benefits to dealing with it because you guys are doing really well. Like, it's impossible for them to see what's going on in your head, that she just has to love me enough to deal with it. And, because I'll tell her, I'll be like, I know you're not on this. Yeah, I know you don't understand like the timeline or the frequency that's in my head, or like what I'm going to, is I try to paint it, but I don't know that they truly are on the same wavelength. But she loves me 90% of the time enough to deal with it. So
that's well said, man.
Well said.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the episode today. Cody, Steven, appreciate you guys.
Jeez, I can't believe we're already at the end, dude. I could keep going. I got so many more questions.
What do you want to do?
No. This is great. Yeah, we'll wrap it up here. We got to bring Justin back there. You're a stud, dude.
Justin, thank you so much for joining. Before we close out, let people know how they can connect with you.
Yeah, you can hit us up. We got a great splash page at justinbrock.com. We're always trying to grow on Instagram and YouTube. So at the Justin Brock or youtube.com/JustinBrock.